Ciao.
That's sponsored by Remote HQ. Collaborate like you're in the same room. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. That's Remote HQ.
Most about playing Monopoly? Competing to own it all.
Topics that I knew I wanted to do, not even on the list. Nowhere near the list. I think because when they said earlier this year, one more thing. Hang on. Let me do the thing really quickly. Rob Walch is here with us, everybody. He is the host of Today in iOS. He is also Vice President, Podcaster Relations at Libsyn. And if you don't believe that's true, man, we're talking so late in the night for him, and he's just talking to a podcaster. He's that kind of guy. And I am appreciative of him joining us. Actually, there was a reason I wanted you on. I was very excited to have these topics to talk to you about this week. See, you want to talk about the headphones. I want to talk about what I gotta figure is something that really got your interest. I remember you as an early advocate for the jailbreak community. I don't want to go so far as to say you were an early advocate for jailbreaking, although I know you were jailbreaking much longer than I figured you would be. I don't know if you still are or not.
I am no longer jailbreaking, but I did jailbreak as soon as it was available.
Yeah.
And I jailbreak. I mean, I actually do have one iPhone that's still jailbroken.
Okay.
Actually, maybe I have two.
All right. Well, how much are they going for on eBay? Sorry, it sounds like you're trying to make me an offer.
One of them actually has Android on it.
Oh,
I say that out loud.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even know that was a thing you could do, but we can talk about that later. So there's a story that came out Friday of last week. So it didn't make it to last week's macOS Ken. I did it on Monday's macOS Ken. All about how the App Store, before the App Store, I say Cydia. Am I saying it correctly?
I always called it Cydia, but
Cydia.
I never pronounced anything. You know, it's Sysop or Sysop.
Okay.
Yeah, I always probably pronounced it wrong. But, you know, I have talked with Jay, a.k.a. Surik, in the past. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I understand where he's coming at for this lawsuit.
Oh, hold on. We haven't told anybody what it is yet, in case they missed it. So Cydia, a long time ago, so I'll go even a tiny bit further back. When the iPhone came out, Steve Jobs said, I know developers are going to want to know how to develop for this. And we have a great answer for you. It's web apps. And if they hadn't loved Steve Jobs so much, there would have been boos in the room. I know that. And I don't mean booze. I mean boo, you know, that kind of thing. And it took almost no time then for Jay and people like him to figure out ways to, first of all, jailbreak the iPhone and then start running their own apps on them. And what Jay did was enterprising. He started an app store before there was an app store. I can't remember. Did Apple try to have that shut down before they launched their own app store, or did they wait until they actually had their own mechanism for selling third-party apps?
Well, they've always tried to shut down the jailbreak itself. Mm-hmm. They didn't really try to shut down the jailbreak app store as much as they were just trying to patch the holes that allowed jailbreaking to be there.
Right.
You know, so Apple will tell you, especially because of this lawsuit, that we never tried to shut down the App Store. We just tried to make our device secure.
Right. Really quickly, because we still haven't said what the lawsuit is. So this past week, and it's so weird this is happening when I think a lot of us would consider it so late in the game, Cydia basically is suing Apple or is bringing charges of anti-competitive behavior and having a monopoly on iOS apps against Apple. That is a lawsuit that they filed last week, saying, you know, if Apple had competition, they wouldn't have been able to get away charging the 30% commission that they were charging for so long. Also, Apple keeps developers from being able to talk as directly with their customers being the people who buy the apps, as they might like. And again, if Apple had real competition, they wouldn't be able to control that message quite as forcefully as they have. They would have basically had to give a bit more than they did in years past. And so he's now suing, saying they need to be declared a monopoly. I haven't heard what he's after. Do you know? Is it just
monetary compensation?
He's after monetary compensation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the lawsuit actually, though, says seeks to open the markets for iOS app distribution and iOS app payment processing to those who wish to compete fairly with Apple and to recover the enormous damages Apple caused. So that latter part is the monetization. And the first part, they say they want to open it, but the second part is they're trying to get money.
How do you, I'm sorry, so can I actually sue Apple then for all the money I didn't make in the App Store I didn't think I could start?
Well, as we know, you can sue Apple about pretty much anything.
That's true. But I mean, do I have a standing in this case? Like, can I sign on as a co-litigator or litigator
and
or
I don't
litigant?
Yeah, I mean, I'm as big a proponent of jailbreaking as there's been, and I don't see that there's a leg to stand on in this case. I mean, could be wrong.
Well, no, here's the thing. I mean, if you're talking about money that I could have made if only I'd been allowed to, that seems a bit ridiculous. But I actually began to wonder if this case does have legs because he actually did set up a thing. He set up a thing to sell these apps, right? And Apple has done what Apple can to keep that from being possible. Now, at the same time, and I hate to say this because I know, again, you were a big proponent of the jailbreak community. I had friends. It was friends of mine who told me about Cydia before I had even heard about it, and I was doing Mac OS X at the time. So, I mean, I know people who have loved that community, have loved that store, have loved the fact that my one friend, whose name I can't think of right now, which I feel terrible about, but he was so proud to show me Duck Hunt on his phone. He was so proud to show me Duck Hunt on his phone because he had bought it from Cydia. And I was pretty amazed, even though it crashed about 45 seconds into my playing.
Well, I mean, one of the things I loved about it early on was the ability to tether my laptop.
Oh, that's right. Phone. Man, I forgot that was an early thing.
I mean, you want to talk about useful features before the carriers were letting you tether your phone to your laptop or let your laptop to your phone.
Yeah.
You needed to jailbreak to do that. And that was, to me, that was always the biggest justification for it. There was a lot of others, but at the time that was clearly one. And then if you looked at the features that came out in iOS, a lot of them came out of, it was like Cydia was the minor leagues for the feature set that was going to come out in the next version of iOS. So Apple benefited definitely from Cydia Store and the jailbreak and what people were doing.
Well, there's another way that they really benefited too, that I remember you talking about years ago, although we couldn't have possibly known what we were talking about when you were talking about it. If not for the jailbreak community, we wouldn't have an app store. Because It was the App Store, it was the jailbreak community, and it was basically this hunger that they demonstrated for third-party apps that made Apple go, well, I guess we ought to do that. And now that is a significant portion of their business. It's not even a thing of, oh, well, this will make it more fun, or even this will make it more useful. It is it is a significant part of their bottom line now.
Yeah, I mean, it was the end of July when the first jailbreak, the phone launched at the end of June. By the end of July, there was the first jailbreak, and then Cydia Store there a little thereafter, and then Apple came out in September, October of 2007, said, hey, you know what? The App Store is kind of a good idea. Yeah, we'll allow it. Yeah, okay.
Well, they didn't come out and say, no, they didn't announce that until the next year, did they? I thought it was around Macworld that they said that. Not Macworld. I'm sorry, not Macworld. No, I would assume WWDC. I don't think it was that soon.
Okay. Well, okay. So yeah, maybe it was the following year, but maybe it was Macworld. Maybe it was January. Okay, it was following January.
I think it would have to have been earlier than WWDC because I know by the time iPhone 3G came out, which was of course the second iPhone, the numbering convention has never not been confusing for iPhone since the first one, I think. But by the time that iPhone came out, I already had apps on my original iPhone because they had opened the App Store the week before that. And I don't think they could have gone from a standing start in June to...
No. It was announced many months ahead of time. Yeah. And they said, we're going to do it and we're going to allow it. But it was a while ahead of time. So it might have been as late as January. It was somewhere between end of September Apple event and either maybe it was Macworld.
Back to the big Cydia debate in a moment. Is it Cydia or Cydia? No, that's not the debate. Anyway, we're back to that in a second, but first a word from Remote HQ, letting you collaborate as if you're in the same room with the people you're collaborating with. Here's what Remote HQ gives you. Note-taking, a whiteboard, access to apps you're already using like Miro and Dropbox and Google Docs and other apps. All that's great, but you've got all of those on your computer already. What Remote HQ really gives you is a place to work together. Oh, you can set the app so that you're the only one that controls them, but the real trick is leaving them open, so your teammates can add notes, take you to a website they want you to see, add to the stuff you've put on the whiteboard, just like you would if you were in the same room. All this with no downloads, no installations. Heck, the other people in the meeting don't even have to sign up for anything. They just click the link that you send them. You know, like you pulled them into a meeting, not handed them a badge. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. Give Remote HQ a try. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. And now let's check back in with Rob Walch. Let me ask you really quickly, so you don't think this, because I kind of assumed that you would be, well, I didn't assume that you would be anywhere. I was ready for you to be on the side of Cydia in this lawsuit.
Here's what you have to look at this too. If I ask this question to you, which platform is more secure, iOS or Android?
Oh, iOS.
Right. And it's a no-brainer, you know, and you take us out of it who are biased, but go out to the normal people, go out to IT people at companies and ask them, and they'll tell you iOS. And then you go, which platform do developers make more money from?
Right.
Well, okay, so let's look at you can look at all the different stats that are out there from a bunch of people, but the first half of this year, $50.1 billion worldwide is how much developers made. Google was at $17.3 billion for Android. You know, Android came in at $17.3 billion of that total. That left $32.8 billion of developer revenue for iOS.
Right.
And if you look at all the other numbers from Apple's pretty much for the last 2 to 3 years has consistently been around twice the total revenue for developers as Android.
Right.
Even though Android has 5 times the installed base globally.
Yeah.
And so I would say, again, explain to me how Apple's approach has hurt app developers.
Okay, well, here's the problem, though. You can't, see, so I'm going to argue, I think I'm going to end up arguing on Cydia's side, although I will follow up by saying why I don't want them to win. But just because I don't want them to win doesn't mean they shouldn't. I think they're probably not wrong. Had there been more competition, Apple might have lowered its 30%. I think the real question is going to be, does Apple have the right to keep other companies off or out of the app selling business? And I don't know.
They have the right to make their device as secure as they feel it needs to be for their ecosystem. And you know, Apple, at the end of the day, Apple will tell you they created an ecosystem of trust and privacy.
Right.
And people are more likely to spend money when they feel safe. And here, wait, I want to go one step further. Mm-hmm. I'm going to quote The Mandalorian from this past week. Everybody thinks they want freedom, but what they really want is order. Oh,
okay. That's okay. Horrible. I can't believe you're doing that right now. Actually, because that's totally the opposite of, I think, what we're supposed to think. But
that quote, yes, Apple's the empire in this case.
You see that? And this is the problem that I have. I mean, what needs to have happened is it needs to have been legal for Apple to do this the whole time. And I think there has been enough of a shift against big technology in general that somebody might just say, no, it's not fair. Everybody should be on there. And then my concern is that's the ball game. Because I don't know Cydia, but I know they've been around for a very long time. And I might even be to a place where I trust them. What about Bedia that comes after that, or Didia, or you name whatever thing that sounds a lot like Cydia? And look, it's even cheaper here than it is there. But the problem is that's where all the malware is. And I don't know that all the malware would be any place, but I do know Apple has a vested interest, yes, in selling apps, but also in making sure that the whole thing is secure. Cydia has a vested interest in selling apps, and Bedia or Dedia or Zydia have a vested interest in beating Cydia. The more we dilute it, the more concerned I get about the havoc that could be wreaked across all kinds of apps.
Yeah, here's how I look at Cydia in their place. In the early days, Apple's competition was Cydia and the jailbreak community.
Okay.
Today's Apple's competition for features is Android. Cydia doesn't fill that slot anymore. As much as I hate to say that, the improvement of iOS doesn't rely on jailbreaking because Apple has to now keep pace feature-wise with Android. And so they have something else spurring them on for that innovation. But they definitely needed that innovation push from Cydia, and Cydia served a great benefit to Apple. Apple should just throw them a few bones and just as a thank you. Lord knows they got the money. But yeah, iOS would not be what it is today if it wasn't for Cydia. And what Jay and the other folks in the jailbreaking community and all of the folks did, as iOS users, which we are very thankful. Does that mean this lawsuit has merit? I don't think it does, because it's still Apple's ecosystem, and the jailbreak always relied on vulnerabilities, holes in security in the OS to work.